Hey everyone, I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, thank you to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone sends my way. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video. Thank you. Well, everyone, today I want to touch on a personal story that has to do mainly with level 12, right? Since we've been talking about them quite a bit on the lives. But before I do so, today's live, I jumped on to basically run something through you and put it behind, right? It's not why I'm on YouTube, but it's not what I'm going to do. You know, someone told me that they're saying that I'm trolling. Okay. So we'll just leave it at that. He just referred as me as the only one knowing about Pelican Bay or whatever it was. But it's not why I'm on here. Again, my respects to their audience, and I'm just done with it. I hope everybody understands it. It is why I moved that life and kept it just with you, and just moved the to members because, you know, like I stated, they're on the lives, which is okay. But this conversation was just with you. I hope you understand. Well, getting on the story of today, I want to talk about the homie Chato from Michigan, East Los, you know, and basically the way it turned out with him due to his way of being. Allow me to take you when I beat my first validation, right? Again, it was all BS points, and I was supposed to go to 2 yards, as I mentioned before, either New Folsom or Salinas, which my angle was New Folsom for a lot of reasons, right? One of the main ones is because it was close to home. It was an opportunity to get more visits, right, from family and stuff, homeboys. And anyways, but they would not send me there. There was 1030s and basically stating a lot of different BS if I hit New Folsom, right, for certain pilis, like T, Artie, Rolo, Sherm. Well, there was numerous pilis, you know, that if I ever got there, I had things to take care of. We'll just leave it at that. But it would not work like that. They would end up sending me to Salinas. They had currently been an event on the yard in the 180, so getting out the shoe, they kept me in that sick, you know. They let me go out to the group yard and that's it. And everything was famous, like I said before, Rube was there politicking, excuse me, or more so he had his people there. The Ayalas had people there. And through this time, there was this camarada, like I mentioned, Chato from Michigan. He had been kicked out of the Bay. He was validated before, but after 15 years, they gave him that 5 year inactive, and he was able to hit the linea again, which that's all firmes, right? There was guidelines to be followed. For those that don't know, it wasn't like a normal camarada. When the camarada gets there, let me check out your paperwork, run it through. and everything. With this, you had to be more in intel because you never know who they were kicking out. They could have been validated back there for a certain Pili that had already taken a dive, and you had to run his name accordingly, right? It was a more extensive screening of individuals, right? But everything checked out with the homie. Everything came back from the bag, todo bien. The Pili was representing were two, right? Chente from East Los and Indio from Sereno. I don't know. He has his own story and how he got close to them up there, right? Like I said, everyone has their story. So the thing is, they did the same thing with him because he was coming out to shoot. They kept him an ATSEC, and I guess after all that time, it's normal, right, for camaradas to. Yeah, I was an idiot, you know. I didn't really believe in 602ing and that stuff, when I 602 my validation, it was because a good dude helped me with that, and when he read through it, it was like icing on the cake, right? It was nothing, you know. But other than that, I was just that idiot that was content. I was already double lifer, validated, and when I hit Pelican Bay, it was for the 187, and you know, I was whatever it may be, to be sincere, I was at peace to say it like that. I was going to end up there, because there was no way to get out for me personally out the bay. I wasn't going to back out, but first, with sugar in my tank, I was going to tough it out regardless. But getting back to Chato, he got there, and being back there for so long, he starts writing out all these complaints. He starts getting into it with the Judas, which, as long as it's verbal, there ain't nothing there. But it does become a problem after so much of it. Then it becomes you pissing them off, and basically the Judas start messing with our gente. That was one issue. The next, when we were on La Yard, he was a straight level 10, 12, 15, whatever you want to call it. He talked down to camaradas. Who I work for. I'm under Indio, I'm under Chente. I have a lot of things to do, which you don't do that. You know, like I said, I had a lot of orders, but regardless of you being a camarada, if them orders don't come with your name, for example, hey, get out to this yard and look for this individual, he's going to back you up, then there's no reason for me to mention him, especially to a whole crowd, right? Because you never know. And anyways, I pulled him aside and I told him like, "Hey, camarada, I know you have your own ways, whatever. I respect that, but you can't be talking down to the camaradas, you know, and you can't be putting out Billy's business in public. Whatever you gotta do, handle it. Suit up, boot up, and boogie. Write it out. After all, you have that okay from them. That's all that matters, right? Why you even mention it to basically get the homies to be like, oh wow, or give you a cookie, or I know that didn't sound good, but I was just trying to make a point. Like, hey, your business with the Pilis is yours. You don't know who's speaking for you to, as you're cotorreando with the homies, instead of laughing it out and stuff, you're talking down to them, and you're trying to work them. And there's a lot of individuals that never made it up there that are like that, right? Which, anyways, after that, we just didn't see eye to eye, which was cool. I didn't mind. He could have gotten at the Pilis and whatever, Like I said, every individual in prison, that's why I don't glorify in prison, on the streets, anywhere you at, if you're real, you should know your value. You should know what you're worth. You know, I knew what I was getting out to Indio's hands, with Chente, with a bunch of other Pilis and Corcoran. So I didn't really sweat it, right? It was like, say something and let's just make it personal and boogie. We whack each other till we go back there and answer up for it, you know. And it's not to glorify it, it's just where I was at, right? I'm not gonna say I knew the ins and outs of everything because that's impossible. You know, only them individuals know how everything's gonna turn out because they dictate it. I was just one out of thousands. Anyways, to not make the story long, because I know it's a weekend, family days, right? It would keep going, keep going. I remember one time there was a camarada doing the rutina with me, up front, calling it out. And I don't know what he was doing up there, right? Because he couldn't keep up. It had already been enough time, and me disliking him, to be sincere, I got on him sideways. And I told him, look, camarada, you've been out here 2 weeks. It's enough time for you to get with the program. You know, all that running in place, chales, you know, you're back there. You always talk a good one of being a soldado. You know who's on this ADSEC yard with palabra. You already ran your mate, you checked it, and I have this. So I'm just gonna give you 3 days, and you're not to run in place no more. You know, and it was a shame because again I spoke about the rise and fall of a good homie that became a Billy Chino from Michigan, right? We were in, in a couple riots together, and he was a hog. He was a big dude, and he was a hog. For those that might know him in the back of his head, he had a huge MA on him. But anyways, this individual keep pressing on it, and then unknown to me, he shot up word to Indio more so, right, about me, basically trying to politic and pencil with me, saying that I was preventing them to do what his requests from them in certain ways. I don't know really how he put his wheel out together, but Indio would end up reaching at me and telling me, like, hey, Chino, what's happening with so and so and this? And I told him, nothing's happening. We're both stuck. And that's not what he had explained, that due to the things happening on the linea, shoe kickouts, whoever, were going to add say till they figured out whatever they needed to figure on the yard. And we were stuck on that seg. And then I told him, look, homie, well, not like that. I told him, mire, señor, con todo y dado respeto, this dude, I know he's a camarada, but he got out. He's talking down to homies. He's trying to work him for things. You know, he don't want to complete the program when it comes to rutina and other things inside, and he's always above the program. And I told him, I'm here in that seg representing Sherm and Terco, and I would never get in your way, and the things we're doing out there should speak for themselves, right? Even though I'm stuck, I'm still staying relevant through a different avenue, if you guys get it. Which, for Matt's sake, it has to go through their routes. But from that one time, at the end, and you put, with all due respect, camarada, just keep it humble till we end our conversation. So that's what I did. I was an idiot. I told you guys I have no value for life. So to be sincere, even though I wasn't saying nothing in my head every time we went out to yard, I was thinking of 1,000 ways to hurt this individual. And it's not to say because I'm this, and that, but my mindset was there, at that them wiggle, sorry. And I would get the answer. It took a minute, but I got the answer back. And basically, the vato was done. Because Indio, even though when he got the shoe, he started playing along with the power struggle, use and abuse. At the moment when he was in the Bay, he was a different individual. He hurt camaradas. He was about maintaining a correct program that would eventually reach to them, having a lot of people on that yard. Most importantly, he knew how to keep his avenues open. Like I said, we were doing things behind the scenes that didn't have nothing to do with the prison yard. You guys get it. And anyways, when his appeal came back, it said specifically this. Okay, I trust your word. And this individual, he was just sitting back here taking space. We figured since he was hitting a linea, he could be a use. But in reality, he had nothing to offer when he was back here, just his presence. So he'd be in a bump in the road, excuse me, ram through him, and make sure you let him know that I send up piñatas for the party, and I did it Mexican style with hard candy inside. If you guys get what it meant between the lines, right? So to me, it was a pleasure. At the moment, I had a celly that had a release date. I was a double lifer, so it was what it was. They couldn't do nothing to me. To me, it was just what I'm gonna get a shoe, go back to the shoe. It was. I had the feeling they weren't gonna allow me back to the linea regardless, right? They were gonna keep playing it, and next thing you know, it's you went to committee and hey, we heard you were holding this for so and so, and you were doing this for so and so, and we think you might be a threat to the program out here. So they were going to put me up for transfer again. It's how the CDC worked, you know. So I figured I'd just boogie, and I let it go, for a minute. Like the Bill says, if he keeps it up. So I wasn't going to jump the gun. I wasn't that dumb, right? And he would eventually start, and I didn't want to do it behind them getting on a camarada, all high power and talking down, because I would be minimizing the camarada in the sense that I would be saying he's not good enough soldado to defend his own pride, right? So I did it behind Rutina though. The whole Rutina he just ran in place. And when he did so, I told him, hey Chato, let me talk to you, homie, por favor. He made a face and it made it a lot easier, right? We went to the corner and I just started booking this fool. The paperwork said, I believe like 15, 16 times I hit him. I used to black out always. I was that idiot that I went, boogied, and I blacked out. I didn't know where I was at. I knew what I was doing, and I needed to get it done. So I focused on that. And anyways, as I'm hitting him, I heard the camaradas just tell me, hey, just estuvo, because they had already shot the blood gun the times they were going to shoot it, and he grabbed the mini, right? And once I heard him, well, that piece, I flew it, make this Judas work for it. And I got down. He was literally in front of me, and when they pepper spray you, you go through the phase, right? You can't speak, you can hardly breathe. So, anyways, they took us back in on the cages, and in the cages, he was running like a cell soldier, saying the same thing, who I'm speaking and what you just did. You just basically moved on Indio and Chente. And I told, look, homie, there's no reason for me and you to speak no more. You're irrelevant, right? I just want you to know this. I have a message to deliver to you from Indio. And he basically said, you're done. The party was being thrown by him. He personally was throwing the piñatas with her candy. You're done. All that high power. I spent 15 years and I'm so and so, and you ain't nothing. To camaradas you don't even know. You don't know why they're back there. You didn't even care. You didn't care to follow program. You know, you thought you were the only one that could reach out to certain individuals, and then he just stood quiet and we left it alone at that. After that, he was taken over real cool and he was done. But that's exactly how politicking would mostly go. You have to take proper channels, and whatever your worth is basically the green light you're going to get to do what you need to do, right? Especially if you're known for being fair and for doing things right, you know, which I ain't going to tap myself on the back, but thank you, God. It wasn't just what I could bring to the table through my family. I always thought of the camaradas and always put in first hand whatever needed to be done by a senor. That was the program. That's what it was. Again, that's where my mindset was at. That's where my heart was at, you know. And anyways, this was just an in look on how politics really work. I found out the Vato was a killer. But he was a real killer, not them fake ones trying to be pancheros, shooting to the air and accidentally killing somebody, right? He really, he really did take out a couple people in a vicious way, you know. I read his paperwork, but you know, there's nothing to glorify about being a killer. You know, take it from an idiot that I got busted for double murder, three attempted murders, and then inside I caught another 187, and then I could speak to you about taking somebody's life since I was 6 years old. But you know, killer, have you ever been in a situation when they ask you, hey, you see that fool right there? Yeah, go ahead and get that matapuercos, that knife. I want you alive to skin him, to take off his hands and foot while you're making fun of him, looking him in the eyes. And you know, when you used to do with a smile on your face, there's something seriously wrong, you know, and there's nothing to glorify about, believe me, because life's a circle and it always comes back and bites you. You know, since I found God, I never ask for forgiveness. I'm honest with everyone. You know, I ask, I do apologize, you know, and let him know my mindset. He knows my mindset ain't there no more, you know. I mean, I'm in a situation where constantly, you know, I'm there again, doing what I have to do. But my heart just is not in that no more, you know. I had time to analyze, you know, from 6 years old, my grandpa put me in that room to do so. And then it was a current event, always. That's why I can't wait to get back to Cali. I would love for you guys to read my court transcripts and why I got busted for them two murders and all that. But while I was there, I would love to share with you what they were trying to pin on me. Again, there's no reason to speak on it because I don't got paperwork, right? But I'm honest with every one of you. That's why since the gate, you know what I look like, even though out of respect, I have to use this thing. But I circle around that so that you guys will know who you're speaking with. You know exactly where I'm at. I put my full name, CDC number, and every time I speak about something, that's why I give you dates and times so that you could do your research, right? For those that want to. There is no keeping things with me. There is no point of me coming on here with a message by keeping things. You know, in reality, I was a scandalous individual, had none, you know, respect for human beings and life. I was that individual that at one point, if someone gives you a headache, it was easier to take their head off and end the problem. Remember, I did time in Mexico, and to the grace of God, you know, there's a reason why I'm still here. You know, knock on wood. But anyways, the in look on this one is that, you know, when you're prepared to go in the system, watch out for those that they they constantly have their hands on their brocha and talking down to you. But also on the streets, there is vatos that get out that have never done nothing. and they're going to try to work their neighborhood, the younger homies, right? So, in a sense, don't trust them. Don't trust nobody, period, including myself. Trust in yourself. Even though there is a lot of back and forth from all these channels, right? Dislikes or whatever, on the end of the day, you could take a little bit from each one to basically set up mentality to foresee things when they come your way if you're ever in them situations. That's the whole point of being here. And of course, allowing you to see the grace of God at least working through me, right? You, for those of them we have read all my paperwork on my condition and, facts are I shouldn't be here no more. I don't deserve to. But do stay smart, stay true to yourself, and loyal to your loved ones.